Hey everyone, Derek here from WayScript. In this one, I want to show you how to use a new feature that we've recently added. I want to show you how to use asynchronous function calls within your script. These are useful if you want to execute multiple functions all at the same time. Let's get started. Starting out, we'll create our script, and I'll call this one async demo, and I'll click on create. The idea behind an asynchronous function call is you may have a function that takes a long time to execute, but you want to call it from your main function and still have that return a response before that second function executes. So, since we want to do that, we need to create a second function. We'll call this one background function. And this will just have some type of action on it that takes a long time to execute. We can say something like a Python script. In this Python script, let's just create some type of function that might take a while. We can just set up a list and let's create a for loop. So we'll say for I in the range, and then we'll pass in some large value. So we'll use 1,000. Then we'll call a random package and say random int between 0 and 10,000. We'll set this equal to an integer value, and then we'll append it to list A. So we'll say list A, append, and then we'll pass in int, and we'll make this int A, and change this as well. We'll just say print list A. Even though this won't take too long, it's just a demonstration that we could have something much larger here that we wanted to execute. We'll hit run code, and we see we get back a lot of values in our log. We'll be using this Python script as an example of something that might take a long time to execute, but we want to call it from this main function whenever something happens here. The main use case we thought of whenever designing this feature was using an HTTP endpoint. So the use case would be we would send a request to this endpoint and expect a response. So we can use HTTP outside of the trigger and have it as an HTTP response. We'll change this from HTML to JSON, and we'll just have it return a JSON response. For this to work, we need to activate this HTTP trigger. And now let's call this function whenever we get a request to this endpoint. We can do that by using a function call module. This function call, we can pick which one we want. In this case, we want to run background function, and let's run this asynchronously. Before this feature went live, you may send a request to this endpoint and then have to wait on a long function to execute before you get your HTTP response. Now, whenever a user goes to this endpoint, they'll get a response at the same time while this thread runs in the background. So let's test it out. We'll go to that endpoint, which will trigger our script. We can see in our log that when we went to that endpoint, our trigger ran, we activated our background function, so it started running, we returned the response, and then our Python script finished executing. Before, the Python script would have to execute everything before you got that HTTP response. And that's it for this one. I hope it shows you that we can execute through many background threads whenever one main thread is running on our program. If you have any questions or comments about this, please let us know and we'll help you out. Until next time.